So why do you need database? We need database so that we should be able to record information in a right place, and then we'll be able to retrieve it. Because you saw our files, our files of PHP, they couldn't save the information. For example, if I access the variable right now, the next time I access it, that data will be lost. So the database will enable us to save the information somewhere, and then we'll be able to retrieve that information later. So that's how you need database. So there's another language that we use to access or to talk with the database, and it's not a language, it's just how should I call it? It's kind of a language, but we use it to do what? To communicate to what? To database. So a database and PHP, they are two different things. So what happens is let me try to draw something here. So what happens is something like this. We have our database. Someone should mute themselves. We have our website here. This is our computer. And then here is our what? Is our server. And then this server cannot save information. It is PHP. This is what we call our server is what? PHP. So before, what you are doing, we are putting here the link, and then it comes to the what? To the server. And then this server does the logic, process the file, and then it send back this file to our computer, and then we can be able to do what? To see the file that we requested for. Okay, but this server cannot be able to save the information. What does it do? It just processes some files. But sometimes we may need to save information like student marks, student grades, students attendance, say, or just any kind of information. We may need to save information, records. So if one save records, it means that this PHP code will not be able to do what? To save our records. For it just do what? It processes. So you need another technology here on the server. That will be able to do what? To save our data. This technology that we'll use to save the data in a well-structured way is what we call database. I hope you guys are seeing. So this database, there are many types of database. There are many examples of database. We have Mysql database, Mysql. We have another Oracle. We have many other databases, but these are the most popular ones. So this database, they used to save what? They used to save the information. Now what happens when you send the information? For example, if a user registered their username, their username and password, what happens? This database, this server, it sends this information to this database, and this database saves the information. And then next time when you need to retrieve maybe the information, we need to check with the users which have registered to our website. This server is the one that requests the information from where? From the database, and this database can be able to do what? To provide that information. So since these two are different technologies, for example, this server language, PHP, the processor, PHP, and this database that we're going to use here, we're going to use a database called Mysql. Since these two are different technologies, it means that this one has another language that it uses, that it will understand, not again PHP. And this language that will understand is what we call SQL. It's just a querying language. We shall use this language to communicate to this database. So this PHP will be sending, it will be talking to this database in a language called SQL, and then this database, it will understand this SQL and will be able to respond to this PHP, and the PHP will be able to process the information that has come from database and then send it back to us, to our to the browser or to the computer. We call this one what? We call this one client. Call this client, the computer which is using the internet, and this side we call it, this space where the internet is saved, where the computer is, the website is saved, we call it what? We call it server. So it means that all this time we have been looking at PHP and HTML. Now today we are going to get introduced to this new technology that we use to do what? To save the database. I mean to save the information. And we say that the technology that we shall be using is Mysql database. It's the type of the database that we shall be using in these projects. And this database will understand a language, and that language is called what? SQL. So all along we have been starting the Apache, and this Apache, as I told you before, is just for the PHP. So all along we have been starting this. We have been studying this server only. All along we have been starting the server. This server. I mean the processor, the file processor. But we have not been studying the database SQL. So today we are going to now come, we're going now to come to get introduced to this and know how we can deal with this database. So we start by starting the database. So all along we have not been starting the database. So to start the database, you can see here on XAMPP under Apache we are having another thing called Mysql. So this Mysql is this second side that we see, where we shall be keeping the what? The database. So I'll have to start the Mysql by simply clicking on start. Then when I start here, then it means that the Mysql database has been started. So to access the Mysql database, it is also on the server. We can access it using the interface called phpMyAdmin. So after you have started the Mysql database, you can simply come to your web browser and write localhost /phpMyAdmin, or you can simply just write localhost, and then they'll bring you this dashboard. Then on this corner you'll see phpMyAdmin. So when you click on phpMyAdmin, they'll give you the interface that you can use to access with the what? With your database. So this is what we call database. So we have now two technologies, the PHP that we've been working with to process our scripts, and also the Mysql database. So it means that if I stop, you see this is the SQL database, Mysql database. It means that if I come to the XAMPP and I stop this and I stop Mysql and I come here and refresh, what does it mean? It means that this one is going to throw an error that there is something which is wrong. Of course, what is wrong is because Mysql is not started. So I have to start Mysql so that we should be able to access the what? The database. But for PHP is working. PHP is working very well. You can see our PHP file is working very well, but the database is crying. So to start the database, you simply come to your server and start it. Then you try to refresh, and you see everything is okay. So as you can see here, everything is okay. So before we start looking at learning how to understand how database work, let us first get introduced and see what is meant by how database is arranged. So to understand how database is arranged, I will simply click here on top here on PHP my admin, and then I'll be able to see this different information. So let us explore. First of all, we see here we have databases, we have SQL, we have status, user accounts, export, import, and the rest. So databases, before come databases, you shall have to first look here. We have this dashboard, this sidebar dashboard, and here we're having database server. This will tell us the information about the database. For example, here they are giving us the IP where the database is hosted. Then they'll tell us the type of the database. This is the network where the database is hosted. I can as well paste this one in our browser, and then I'll be able to access the MySQL database. They'll tell us the type of database, which is MariaDB, and then they'll tell us the status of about the database. All the information is here. Now, to access a database, we will need what we call a user account. So you cannot access a database just from anywhere without providing the username and password. That's why you see here there are two different technologies. This one is on the other side and this is on the other side. So to access here, we shall be first providing the username and password to have the permission to get the data or insert data here in the database. So if this database verifies that the username is correct and the password is correct, then we'll be able to do it to provide the information. Otherwise, if the username and the password is not correct, then this database will not do what? Will not provide the information. So before we proceed, we shall first use the default username. For example, the default username does not have limitation, which is the root, is the default username. This default username, it comes by default by just when you install MySQL database, which we install using when you install XAMPP, it comes with a user called root. So this root user, he will have free access to the database, and he can do anything on the database. That's why you can see here we have connected using the user called root, and he's located at localhost. So that's why you see root at localhost. Otherwise, if we did not connect using this root and localhost account, if it was protected, then we couldn't be able to do what? To access this database before we provide the username and password. So you have here the web server, the information about the server, PHP 7, and then also about PHP admin. Documentation is also here in case you want to read more. You can simply come here and you'll find all the information that you may want to do what? To begin with about PHP admin. So that's the basic information about the database. But you know that we are connected using a user called root. So we come back here. We shall see we have databases. So these databases, they are containers where we'll be saving our data. So you see, these are the database. So here we shall have SQL. This is a place where we shall be writing the language that will be communicating to the database. So here we have status of our database, the size that is written in the database, the information where there is an error, all the status, we can find it here. Then here we have user accounts. Remember, I said that we need a user account to access the database. So all the user accounts, they can be found here. But mine is throwing an error. I don't know why, but you in your computer, for you to come here to user account, and you see different user accounts that we may need to do what, to access in our database. So here, export, we shall look at it when we proceed, and import and the rest we shall look at them when we proceed. But the main part is, I've explained them here, and databases. So we begin by looking what is a database though. So you can see we have what we call a mini database. So why do you need a database? So a database is where we shall be keeping our information separately from the from the PHP code. So the PHP code will be coming here and fetch the information and then process it and be able to present the file to the browser. I mean to present the file that should be sent to the to the browser. Now every project that we create will need a separate database. Like if we create a certain project, a school management system, we will always need a separate database. But you can still use the same database, but it is recommended that you need a separate database. For example, I create a hospital management system. That is a separate project. For example, I come here, I create a hospital management system. Assume that I'm going to create a project. This is maybe for hospital. They give me a job and I want to make for a hospital management system. Hospital. So what does it mean? So it means that this hospital is for is a different project that I'm going to make. So it is recommended that I create for it a special container where I'll be saving its data. And that container is what we call a database, where I'll be saving the data about this container. So maybe also the school, it gives me another work to do for them. So this is another project for school. So it will be illogical to again come and save the data of a school inside this database of the hospital. This is wrong. So what is recommended? You have to create a separate project. A separate database where we'll be saving the information for the school database. Maybe you get another project again where they say that you should make maybe an e-commerce website. This is another different project, an e-commerce website. So you don't need again to come and save your data here. No, you have to do to create another database for this separate project. So every project that you create, we will need a separate container for it. So that we should not mix we should not mix information. This is an e-commerce website. E-commerce website. This is a school. This is a hospital. This is a school. So these three things are totally different. It will be illogical if you put these databases into the same thing. So what is advised, every project that you create, you should be having a separate database. So that's what you're going to do. That's what you're going to do. So it means that when you start something, you have to start by creating a database. So inside this database, you will save the information about this e-commerce website. In this database, you save the information about the school. Inside this database, so you can have as many databases as you want in your server. So we begin. If I click here, you see database. You see I have databases for my different projects. I have a database for alumni, I have a database for B Music, I have a database for cargo project. So all these are different projects that I've been making, and I have their different and separate databases. So how do you create a database? So we need a language. Now we need to understand the language that will talk to this database and tell it to create for us a database. For example, I want to create a database for what? For school. Maybe how should I call this school? I should call it Smile Girls. Smile Girls. and it's a school where we're going to be keeping what? Our information. So we need to create a separate database for smart girls. I shouldn't tamper with any database that I have already, because it will make no point. So we need that language. So to get that language, you should have to come to W3 Schools, the syllabus that we follow, and look for for language called SQL. Here we are. So we're going to follow along SQL and learn how we can do how we can communicate to the database. So first of all, we begin by installing. Already our database is already installed, and it has already started by clicking here on my SQL and then start. So after starting the database, we shall have to come back again to to the W3 Schools and see how we follow along. So the first thing that we'll begin with is how to create a database. Okay, their syntax, their organization is not well organized, but I'm going to begin by learning how to create a database. Then we shall come back for this later. So if I come search here database, you see here create a database. So we start. So to create a database in SQL, using SQL language, we do we write create database, and then you put a database name. Okay, so to create a database, you write create database and then you put database name and run that SQL. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to be saving this SQL so that you should be able to do to get this code and practice, when I'll share the code. So I'm going to be saving this SQL separately. So I'll come here and save it as I think I should create a separate folder for SQL. Yeah, let me create a separate folder for for SQL. So I'll call it SQL. I'll open that folder and I'll call it _SQL create db database .sql. So there we are, and this is our our file 1. So to create a database, we simply write create database, and then after creating database, after writing these words, then you write the name of the database. For example, the name of the database that I'm going to create is going to be called Smart Schools. Smart Girls. No. Okay. Let me call it eSchool. Just so another rule is that when you create a database, you don't need to do what? I want to install the packages of SQL. I don't know whether I have them. These are enough. Okay. So we write the first SQL to create a database, which is create database, and then you give the database name. So eSchool. Okay. So when I create a database, it is not supposed to have the space inside the name. Okay, if I do like this, it will not be allowed. A name must be joined together and should not be having a space. So this is our simple SQL. So if you can see my SQL, what I've done, the keywords, these keywords, you can put them in any case. It can be small letters, capital letters, no problem. but it is good practice to put the keywords. For example, this is a keyword and this is a keyword, because these are the language. This is the language. These are the names of, these are words of what? Of SQL, and this is my own word. So the keywords, it's better to keep them in what? In capital letters, and then my own words, I'll keep them in what? In small letters. So I'll have to copy all this and then come and run it. Okay, this is the SQL that I've written. That is the one that will do what? That will create for us the database. So after copying it, Ctrl A, Ctrl C, and then I'll come to the browser, to my PHP admin, and then I'll have to run it. So to have run it, I'll click on PHP admin, and then I click on what? On SQL. Okay, then when I click on SQL, I'll have a space where I can write the SQL. I can as well write it from here directly, no problem. But I've already written it, so I'll just paste it there. So I've pasted it. Okay, so when I paste it, I'll have here a button that will allow me to do what? To run this SQL. So these are the databases that I already have. So what I'm going to click, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create the database by simply pressing go. So you can see this database has been created. It was not there before, but you can see this database has been created. So if I select it, and then you'll see the database has been created. It is there. Members, do you understand?
Yes.
So I understand?
Yeah.
Then we proceed. So you can see I've successfully done what? I've successfully created the what? The database. So this database is a place where you shall be saving the what? The information. So we begin by saving the to save the information. So to save the information, what we have done right now, we have just created created what? We have just created something like this. We have just created one big box, and it is called what? Sql. Okay, that's what we just created. So it is here. So the question is, how are we going to save the other information? For example, in school, we have different information that we need to save. Among the information, we have students information. Among information, we'll have marks of students. Among information, we'll have maybe parents. We'll have many things that we'll need to do what? To save in a what? In a database about a school. So you may need to save teachers. We may need to save books in the library. We may need to save, which other thing can we need to save in the school? We may need to save events. So all this information, we may need to do what? To save them inside the what? Inside the database. But the problem is, we have just one big box that we have just created. So how shall we be able to save students and marks and whatever and etc? So we need to create a what? Different tables. So likewise, in the way how we have been doing this thing before we come to technology, or to convert the offline work into online work, we are saving these students in a book, we are saving marks in a book, we are saving teachers information in a book. So those different books is what you are going to be creating inside a what? Inside a database. And those different books are the ones that we call tables. So it means here we're going to need a table of a what? Of students here. Okay, you shall need a what? A table of students. When I say table, I just mean something like this, a real table that you know. Okay, of what? Of students. So if we are to save a student, we shall not just save them on a database, but we shall save them in a what? In a table of students. We shall need a table of marks. We will be saving a what? Marks of a what? Of students. Okay. We will need a table of what? Maybe of books in a library. Okay. And in these books is where we shall be saving the information about the books. So these small animals that we see in this big database are the one that we call what? And the one that we call, this is a database, remember? Database. And these ones are called what? Tables. This is a table of marks. This is a table of what? Table of students, of books. This is a table of what? Of students. So a table will help us to organize related things into same place. Okay? Because we cannot mix the information of a book with information of a student, with information of a marks, with information of news, with information of events. We cannot mix all those information. We have to group them. For example, all the information about students, we put them in a single table. We group the information about the marks, we put them in a different table. We group the information about the books, we put them in a what? In a different table. Now, after doing that, it means that we are going to now start learning how to create a table. How to create a table of students. So before you learn how to create a table, for example, you're going to create a table of students. We need again to do what? To know what are we going to save exactly in a what? In a table of students. Okay? What are we going to save in a table of what? In a table of students. First of all, you'll need maybe to save a student's what? Student ID. We may need to save the student first name. First name. Okay. We may need to save the student last what? Last name. We may need to save the student's gender. Maybe we may need to save the student's age. Maybe we need to save the student what? Address. Okay. So once you create a table like this, then we shall need to insert records of a what? Of a student. But the first thing to begin with is to create a what? A table. Okay. So if you can relate, for example, if you need to save books, and the book will also have its own separate table with its own what? With its own inputs. Okay. With its own what? With its own input. For example, this is a table of what? Of books. And this is a table of what? Of students. So ID, we shall need a book ID. We shall need book name, title. We shall need author, maybe the one who write this book, and maybe we shall need the date when it was, the year when it was written. Assume. So members, if I ask you, is the information about the book same as the information about the table? Can someone answer? Are they the same?
No.
No, they are not the same. So it will be logical if we try to save this information in the same table with this one. All of them, they're in a school project. So it means that all of them, they're in a school what? In a school database that we created before. But they are different objects. So they need different what? Different structures where we can save them. And those structures are the ones that we call what? We call tables. So you first identify what you want to save a what? About a what? A student. I mean about a certain object. So according to what we are doing, we are going to begin by creating a what? A table of students. And we're going to save the student ID, the student first name, the student last name, the gender, age, and address. Okay? So this is the information that we're going to save about a student. Or we should keep it simple. Here in a name, I'll just keep it as what? As name. Student name. And I'll remove address. I'll just save ID, name, and what? Gender and age. Only these fields. Okay? So the question is, how do you create a table then? So I'll come to what? To W3 schools, and then we go to how to do what? How to create a what? How to create a table. We shall come to all these steps, but right now we shall begin with the most crucial one. So how to create a what? How to create a table. So to create a table, we follow this syntax. Okay? We say create table, and then you specify the table name. And after putting the table name, then you put a column and a data type. A column and a data type. A column and a data type. And these are separated with a what? With a comma. I repeat, to create a table, you simply say create table. Members, I hope you can see with your phones. Can you?
Yes.
You can see clearly, right?
Yeah.
So we simply say create table, and then you put the table name, and then you open this bracket and close it, and then you write a table column and a data type. Table column and a data type. Table column and a data type. So we're going to see what is meant by data type. So when you are saying that you're going to create these tables, this table, each column, it has its own data type. For example, we have different types of what? Different data types in Mysql, and the data types that we have, let me see if they are mentioned here. They are not mentioned. Okay, we shall look at different data types of what? Of MySQL. Okay, they are here, I think. Okay, so the ID of a student, maybe it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, is not the same as the name of a student. And the name of a student is not the same as the age of a what? Of a student. Okay? Because this is going to be a number and this is going to be a text. So the difference between these columns is what you call data type. So this one will have a data type of a text, the name, and then the age will have the data type of integers maybe. So we are going to look at the what as MySQL data types. They are here, well written. So we have character data type, and we have to specify the size. So these are just default characters. We have variable characters, varchar. So these are characters that change anytime. We have binary, and you have binary, which is zeros and ones. We have verbinary, we have tiny blob, we have tiny text, we have text, we have So all the data types, if you want to read them, we just come here to W3 schools, SQL and stroke SQL data types. You will find all the data types of my SQL. But you don't need to memorize all of them. You don't need to memorize all of them. We shall just look at the most essential ones. So the most important ones, we shall look at them, and we know they are variable character is the most important one that we always use. We have an integer, so these are the numbers that count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we have text that text is a long group of characters. So that text is those are the most three common data types that we shall be using. Variable character, these are characters. These are text that will change anytime. For example, a name of a person. Sumaya's name is maybe 6 letters. But if you see Hamza's name, maybe it's like 3 letters. I mean like 5 letters. If you see Ali's name, is like 3 letters. But all these names, they are going to save in the same column. So those characters, they are changing every time, which we don't know the specific value. So those are the ones that we call variable character. And in my SQL, we refer to them as varchar. That is the data type called variable character. We have other data types. So we've understood. So when you when you create a variable character, you'll need to specify the size, the maximum size. You say, even though I'm going to save here the names, for example, but the most longest name, it should not cross this number. So that's the maximum number of text that you want to limit your names at. So that's the size of of a variable character. So if you specify 5 variable character and someone enters a name of 10 characters, it means that the remaining part, the trailing part, will be truncated. It will be cut. So that is variable character. We have integers. Of course, integers, they are counting numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and above. So we begin by doing what? By creating a table. So to create a table, just like the way we told you, you simply say, let me create a new file, and I'm going to save it as to Sql Create Table .sql. So to create a table, you simply say create table. Okay, after specifying create table, then you give it a table name. The syntax is here. You give it a table name. For example, we can say